Yo, what's going on, y'all? This is Marcus Rosa, a.k.a. Mazuma TV. Back at y'all with some more boxing talk, man. I hope everybody's having a blessed, beautiful, positive, productive day. I'm just chilling, enjoying this beautiful Philadelphia morning. About to be on my way to it. I hope you're doing the same. On the road to 4K. We well into the 3,200 mark. About to hit that 3,300 mark in due time. Shout out to the nation and the mob for making this possible. Another one bites the motherfucking dust. So for those of y'all who've been under a rock, ain't been paying attention to what's going on in the boxing world, man, I unfortunately have to inform you guys that yet another fighter, another world champion in the sport of boxing has tested positive for another performance enhancement drug. That's right, people. I was supposed to go live last night, but I had to take care of some things. But we'll be back on live 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to continue cooking up on what's going on in the boxing world. But we were going to talk about the unified middleweight champion of the world, Janibek, somebody who I believe was one of the most avoided fighters in the sport of boxing, had been caught with VADA had informed the boxing world that he had an adverse finding in one of his drug test samples. I just find it funny that they haven't exactly announced what performance enhancement drug it is. You know what I mean? They just said adverse findings and more information will come. I just don't understand why they would make the announcement without saying exactly what PED was in his system. So I do think that's a bit weird in all honesty. But, the reality is there's something in that sample that's not right. That's what I take from the whole situation. And it's an unfortunate situation because I was really looking forward to seeing him and Erislandy Lara, the oldest active champion in the world right now, 42 years old, going up and unifying the middleweight division. Because to be honest, man, there's been a lack of action in terms of like champions facing champions at 160. It's been a standstill. Adames and Janibek, I don't know how many times they've done negotiated, can't seem to get big fights. Janibek calling out all these big guys, but goddamn, man, what a way to slow down your momentum if you Janibek. You know what I mean? You already got people that don't want to fight you. You know what I mean? You having trouble solidifying these big fights. You finally solidify one, and the moment that you do, you test positive for some type of adverse finding. You know what I mean? I just find it funny how, like, with Superell, they was like he had an adverse finding, and then they said exactly what was in his system that wasn't supposed to be there. But Janibek, you know what I mean, to my knowledge, hasn't really come out and tested positive for a particular substance yet. But regardless, just a very, very unfortunate situation, man. This is yet another fighter this year that has been caught. And Superell and Janibek done been caught within a month's time frame. So, man, shout out to VADA for cracking down on these guys. I see a lot of people coming out and saying how, they kind of suspect the VADA. And I'm like, y'all, all right, so y'all suspicious about VADA, the Voluntary Anti-Doping Agency. Y'all are suspicious about them because they continue catching fighters. You should be congratulating them. If you want a clean sport, if you're for fighters, not being drug users or PED users, then you need to be congratulating them because they're exposing these fighters for what they be doing behind the scenes. We see what they do during media workouts, and, we might see a little glimpse in their training camps, weigh-ins, press conferences, but we don't know what they're doing 95% of the time when they're in these training camps. You know what I'm saying? Now, can contamination be a thing? Absolutely, but you still need to be accountable regardless because there's some negligence on your part. You see what I mean? Also, I'm seeing people criticize Erislandy Lara for fighting Johan González. First of all, the last person that we ever need to criticize going into this particular situation is Erislandy Lara. Erislandy Lara, like I said, the oldest active champion in boxing right now, who's consistently fought the best competition throughout his career. One of the most underappreciated fighters of this past decade or so, in my opinion. Gave y'all big fight after big fight, still maintained some type of relevancy regardless of whatever weight class he was in, whether it was 54 or 60. He was heavily avoided, still gave us some great wins, had some controversial losses. You can make an argument that he beat Paul Williams and Canelo Alvarez, right? So I give Erislandy Lara all the respect in the world, and he was about to take on one of the most dangerous guys in the division, if not the man of the division, the only unified champion in the division, Janibek. He didn't have to do that at 42 years old. He a champion in his own right. He could have kept fighting motherfuckers ranked in his sanctioning body. But he chose to unify the division. And he's being criticized for fighting Johan González, who's a last-minute replacement. This Colombian dude who, he got like 4 losses, been stopped twice. Listen, I'm going to tell y'all this. Erislandy Lara, he could have fought a motherfucker out the crowd for all I care. You know how like in the WWE, where like sometimes they'll pick somebody out the crowd and beat them up type shit? You know, they be actors and shit, but y'all get it. I wouldn't give a fuck if Erislandy Lara had to do that to solidify a fight, because at the end of the day, he's at the end of his career. He's trying to get these last few paydays, and I'll be damned if a motherfucking PED user fuck up my money. So Lara, do what you gotta do, brother. Do what you gotta do. Fight whoever you gotta fight. I hope you put more in the highlight reel. I hope you get the easiest check possible, and you continue on with your career. Because shit, thinking about it, this might be Erislandy Lara last fight. You never know. When you're 42 years old, you can just wake up one morning and be like, you know what? I'm done. You see what I'm saying? We don't know how much longer Erislandy Lara got, but we know he got more years behind him than ahead of him. So go ahead. Knock out you a Johan González. I hope you put more on the highlight reel like you did, like you've been doing people lately. And you continue having a fruitful career. You see what I'm saying? The only person that needs to be held to criticized right now is Janibek. You feel what I'm saying? Y'all criticizing Vada. Y'all criticizing Erislandy Lara for his opponent for that's last second. You know he's fighting this weekend, right? You know it's Wednesday, right? They fighting Saturday. That's literally 72 hours away. And you criticizing him because of the last minute opponent that he's going up against? No. Criticize Janibek because none of this shit would have happened if he would have been a clean fighter. But that's my take on this whole situation, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this. This is Marcus Rosa, a.k.a. Mazuma TV, signing off. Hope you guys have a blessed, beautiful one. Peace.